right, we're going to move right into the message for today. And when I first started this, I thought this was going to be, I didn't think it was going to be a series, but I think it's going to be a series because this was supposed to be one sermon. I ended up with 7 pages of notes. I usually can get through about 3 in a Sunday. So this is going to be good. So we'll start it today, and then there'll be a little break with Pastor Bert next week, and then I'll come back and we'll continue this. And this is critically important. Let's see if I can get, oh boy, I never remember how to do this. All right, get my timer going. Okay, this is a critically important subject. And I kind of touched on it last week, and I wasn't planning on going this direction with it. I was planning on preaching at least one, teaching at least maybe 1 or 2 lessons on false beliefs, wrong beliefs, and how they can affect us in our lives and affect our walk with God. And as I was starting to put it together, he started tying in what we talked about a little bit last week with unbelief, with the dangers of unbelief. And I don't know if you remember, if you were here last week, and I'm going to get into it pretty deep this week about we have faith, but sometimes that unbelief can work against that faith. Remember when Mindy and I were up here, and I had more than enough faith, more than enough strength to push this desk across the carpet here, but if unbelief, Mindy represented unbelief, if she was standing over there pushing back, then my faith was not being as effective. And so what can happen is we have to be on guard for unbelief rising up in our hearts and unbelief working against our faith. And these wrong beliefs, wrong knowledge, things we've been taught wrong can create unbelief. So that's all going to get tied together. That's kind of a little synopsis. So the dangers of wrong knowledge and false belief. And so there are many common Christian beliefs that have no basis in Scripture, which I wish I could say that wasn't true, but it is true. And someone will be, is that true? Are you really? I'm going to name a few here, and we won't get to them today, but we'll get to them as we go along. But common Christian beliefs that have no basis in Scripture, so it's wrong knowledge, that then can create wrong beliefs or false beliefs in our thinking, in our hearts. So see if you've heard of any of these. Let me preface it with this too. Sometimes if we've had a long-held belief and someone says, well, that's not true, it can be a little prickly at first. You can be like, I don't know about that. Hang in there with me, okay? I will, as we move through this, I will show you scriptures on all of this. And so some of these things that we've been taught wrong, that we believe possibly, and it could be causing unbelief in our lives. One of them is the saying, everything happens for a reason. And a lot of times these come flying out when something bad has happened in our lives or someone else's life, and we're trying to explain it away. We're trying to excuse it away. But everything happens for a reason. Or how about God allows evil? You know, God allows bad things in your life to teach you lessons. I can hardly even keep going after I say that, not wanting to correct that, but I can make it. How about God moves in mysterious ways? These are things that these are teachings beliefs that can work against us. And we're actually today I was supposed to be preaching on, at least it was my plan, I was supposed to be preaching on the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, which is we hear that a lot, and it's in the scriptures. I don't think I'm going to get there today. We'll try. If not, we'll get there in 2 weeks, okay? And yeah, I'm not going to launch into it. Stick to your notes, Matt. Okay, so why study this? So what God really started developing before we really jumped into this feet first, head first, was why? Why do we even need to deal with this? Why do we need to learn this? Why do we need to study this? What does this wrong knowledge, this wrong false beliefs do? And I talked about it a little bit already with unbelief, but it does more than that. That's why it's so dangerous. So what happens when we believe things that aren't true, aren't truth? One thing it can do is it can give us a wrong impression of God's nature, and that is deadly to our faith, a wrong impression of God's nature. We must